Hello and welcome back to another 3D tutorial from Between CAD Classes. Today I'm creating the part that you can see here in Autodesk Inventor. As we look at this print, you can see there are basically 4 extrusions and then some holes that we're going to add to this shape. If you would like to try this along with me, please take a look at the description for this video where I have put a link to the detail drawing. I'm going to start on the back of the part where we have a circle with a diameter of 1.375 and it's going to be extruded 0.15. So back in Inventor then, I'm going to start a new part off of the standard inch template. Then I am going to start a new sketch on my front sketch plane, my XY sketch plane here. I'll begin with a circle. And then we're told it has a diameter of 1.375, so I'll enter that in, then finish, begin my extrude command, and bring that forward 0.15. And that will give us our first extrusion. So next, as we look at the detailed drawing, our next extrusion is probably the most difficult one because of the cutout down on the bottom. I'm going to do the cutout as a separate feature, so I'm just going to look at the main solid shape here. We can see that on the solid shape we have a radius of 1, so basically a circle with a diameter of 2 at the same center as the one I just created. And then if we go down 1 3/8 and over to the right 1 3/8, we are going to have another circle with a radius of 0.45 or a diameter of 0.9. So back in Inventor then, I'll start a new sketch on the front face of the extrusion I just created. I'll begin with a circle and a diameter of 2. Then I am going to create another circle just out here in space. I'll come back with some dimensions in just a bit, and I'll give it a diameter of 0.9. We can see it's under constrained. It's still green, so I'm going to use my dimension tool and dimension between the centers of the 2 circles and create a horizontal dimension of 1 3/8. Then I will do the same thing to create a vertical dimension of 1 3/8. Next, I can draw in my tangent lines. So I'll begin with a line command, and I'm just going to click somewhere on the large circle. I'll come back and add my tangent constraint afterwards, but when I come to the small circle, I'm going to move until I find the tangent constraint and click there. I'll do the same thing on the other side here. So again, I'll click somewhere on the circle and then tangent. Then I'll come back and add my tangent constraints between the larger circle and the line, and then the larger circle and a line on the other side. Now I have a couple of different choices here. I could go ahead and keep this as is and extrude 3 different profiles, or I can trim them. To make this easier to extrude, I'm going to go ahead and trim. So I'll select my trim tool, and then I'm just going to click and drag across both of these circles to trim them both in one fell swoop. And there we can see we have just the one profile left, which will make it easier to select for extruding. I'll go ahead and finish my sketch, and then this extrusion is going to be 1/4 of an inch, so I will extrude 0.25 and enter. And now I'm going to tackle the cutout. So if we take a look at the detailed drawing here, we can see that the cutout shares the same center as the circular shape on the bottom right. We can see that there's a radius 0.125 tangent arc shape in here as well. And we can see that we have a straight line cutout that's 90 degrees from the center line of the shape that we just drew. Then we can see there's a radius of 0.25. I'm going to do that particular radius with the fillet command after I create the cutout. So back here in Inventor, I'm going to create a new sketch here on this plane of the surface that we just created. I'm going to project the geometry of this arc so I can snap to it. So I'll project geometry of that arc. I'm going to draw a construction line from the center of the large arc through the smaller arc, and then I want it to terminate on the far edge. I want this to be a construction line so that it doesn't get picked up as part of my extrusion. So I'm going to come to the Format panel and select my construction line tool here. Then I will draw a line from the center of the large arc, and then I'm just going to go ahead and ignore the other center and just have it terminate at the far arc. Then I'm going to come back and add my coincident constraint between the center of the small arc and the construction line. The whole purpose of this line is to help me locate the circle for this cutout portion. So next, I'm going to turn off my construction geometry, otherwise the next shape I draw will also be construction geometry. And then I'm going to add in my circle here with a diameter of 0.4. Then I'm going to add in the circle over here. So now that I have this construction line, I can draw a circle anywhere on this line here, and then I'll add some tangent constraints to it. So I'm just going to snap to this construction line and draw a small circle here. Then I will come back with my tangent constraint, select the circle I just drew and the previous circle to make those tangent to each other, then the circle I just drew and this outside arc. And now we can see that it's tucked in there perfectly with those tangent constraints. Next, I can draw the straight line cutout here. So I'll draw a line from the intersection here, and then it's snapping either to the tangent or the perpendicular. Both would be true. And then I'll go ahead and click once I get to this outside edge. Now, while I was seeing the preview of the perpendicular, it doesn't look like it added it, nor does it look like it added the tangent. So I can add either one of those constraints. I'll go ahead and do perpendicular. So the line I just created needs to be perpendicular to the construction line there. Now I have everything I need to make the cutout. I'm going to go ahead and trim a couple of arcs here. I'm going to trim the inside of this circle and the top part of this one. And now we can see this shape in here is what we want to cut out. So I'll finish my sketch, extrude, select that shape if necessary. I'm going to flip it the other way and then change it through all, and it recognized it's a cutout since I'm going into the part. Then I'll go ahead and click OK. Then, as I said earlier, I'm going to come back and just fillet this edge. So fillet, select that edge, and then give it a fillet of 0.25 and enter. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I could have done this all in one sketch. I opted to do it as a solid shape and then the cutout. I like the flexibility that gives me. If I decide I don't want the cutout anymore, I can drag my end of part up, or I could suppress or delete those features, drag it back down, and they're there. Let's look at the print again, and next we have a diameter of 1 extrusion that's going 0.5. So I'll go ahead and sketch on that front surface again. It projected the origin point there, so I can go ahead and snap to it and then draw a circle with a diameter of 1. Finish the sketch, extrude, and then it was going to be a depth of 0.5. Then we're ready for our last shape. So as we look at this one, we can see that it's another situation of two circles being joined by tangent lines, and it also has a slot cut out. I'm going to do that as a separate feature because once again that gives me the flexibility to control it differently. So for this one, we've got a radius of 0.688 for the bottom circle, and then 2 inches up, a radius of 0.375 for the top one. So I'll go ahead and sketch on the top of the cylinder that I just created. I'll begin with the bottom circle. By default, I'm showing the diameter dimension. I can right click and select radius instead, and now I can type in the 0.688 for that radius. Then I'll create another circle up above. You can see that it retained the radius setting, so I'll go ahead and put in 0.375 and enter. One word of warning though, you might want to start another circle and right click and switch it back to diameter so that the next time you use it, it acts like you expect it to. So for this circle, I tracked up, but it didn't create a relationship, so I'm going to need to create a vertical constraint between the two center points here, then a dimension of 2 between them. Now I can draw my tangent lines. So once again, I'll just arbitrarily pick on one circle and then move until I see the tangent on the other. And then I'll do the same thing on the opposite side, then come back and add my tangent constraints. Once again, I can go ahead and extrude and have multiple profiles, or I can trim the insides of these circles so that I have one profile. Be aware though, looks like I've got some projected geometry there, so that might be picked up in my extrude command. We'll see pretty quickly here. I'll extrude, and as you can see, it did indeed pick up that projected profile, so I'll go ahead and click to select them both. The thickness of this one is 1/4 inch, 0.25, and enter. Now looking at the print again, we have a slotted shape 0.625 between the centers, and then a radius of 0.2, or if you want to think about the full width of the slot, is going to be 0.4. So back here in Inventor, I'm going to sketch on that front surface. I want to be able to snap to that top arc, so I'm going to project geometry of that top arc so I get its center point there. I could of course draw this as two circles with tangent lines and trim, but we have some faster tools for that. If I click the drop down under rectangle, I can see some slot options. The one that makes the most sense for me here is the center to center slot. So I'm going to snap to that first point, and then I'm going to come down 0.625 and enter for my second center. And then I can go ahead and put in the width. So notice that dimension, it's giving me the entire width of the slot. So we were given the radius value of 0.2, so this is going to be 0.4 to get me all the way across the slot. As you can see, much faster than drawing two circles and dimensioning and adding some tangent constraints. I'll go ahead and finish and extrude. Change this to a cut, going through all, then click OK. Finally, I have the circle that cuts through all the extrusions. It is a diameter of 0.75, so on this top shape, I'll go ahead and start a new sketch. Draw a circle with a diameter of 0.75. Then I will finish and extrude. Once again, this is going to be a cut through all, and then I will go ahead and click OK. And there we can see our completed part. I hope you found this tutorial useful. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to try this out yourself, find a link to the detailed drawing in the description of this video. Please like and subscribe, and as always, thank you so much for watching.